Almost certainly going to run into the Senate's Republican wall, as Alex was talking about there. What is the strategy here for getting new laws on the books permanently, or even just messaging-wise? And what, if anything, could Republicans consider passing in the future? I spoke with Brad Polumbo. He's an editor at the right-leaning Young Voices. He feels strongly about gun rights. So I wanted to figure out if there is a realistic path forward, legislatively, on both sides. These measures have passed the House of Representatives, controlled by Democrats. They are going now to the Senate, controlled by Republicans.
Yeah.
Do they have any shot of getting through?
No, they don't.
Okay.
I think it's unlikely that the Senate will pass either of these bills. And even if they did, I think President Trump would veto them. And I think he would be right to do so.
What is the strategy here to advance the discussion, or at least make this feel like a real possibility in the future to get this through?
Well, yeah, I think what the Democrats are looking at here are very favorable poll numbers for these proposals. So they don't really care whether it gets passed or not right now. That's not their goal. I'm sure they'd like it to be passed.
Sure.
But their goal is to appease their base. I mean, if you look back at the 2018 midterms, countless House Dems ran on this, especially some of the new members. They ran on gun control, gun control, gun control. So I think they see a political win here, even if nothing ever materializes.
The American people, even the vast majority of NRA members, do want to see things like background checks. Most Americans do want to see some more stringent laws in place when it comes to owning firearms. Yet, and still, people do support the Second Amendment. You know, they want to be able to protect their own families and their properties. At this point, what is a viable solution to somehow wed those two together?
Well, I think that there are things you can do to stop gun violence that don't involve any restriction on gun rights. For example, the American Psychological Association has repeatedly put out press releases and studies calling for the media to stop sensationalizing and giving blanket coverage to mass shooters. Because unfortunately, the media does not mean to be doing this. I'm not ascribing any data.
Okay, but I'm talking about legislation.
But so, I mean, obviously we're not going to legislate that, but we can fight these things culturally too, right?
Okay.
If the media stopped covering mass shooters and basking their names in infamy, you would have fewer. Most psychologists
and we do
agree.
that. We do that here at Newsy. That we try to really focus on the families, the victims, things like that. But I'm talking
right.
about legislatively. What could be done? What could those who support gun rights, what would they accede to?
Well, I think that we can't just jump to the idea that something should be done just because people feel very strongly about this. You know,
So
we
nothing?
have a narrative that is pushed using gun statistics that include things like suicides, that include things like accidents, and those are used to push a narrative of everyday mass shootings. In reality, it's incredibly rare. You know, according to the Washington Post, the chances that a child will be shot in school on any given day are 1 in 614 million. So before we go and start just feeling the urge to do something, we have to make sure that there's actually something that makes sense to be done.
Right. I understand all the arguments, but get real with me here, Brad.
Yeah.
I know you're talking about cultural narratives, but we also have data. And we know how many people die in the U.S. by gun violence, and it's disproportionate to the rest of the world. And we also know the vast majority of Americans do want more protections legislatively. So I'll ask the question, legislatively, what could be done, if anything?
One thing that I'm open to is red flag laws. Right. So we have laws across the country that I think you have to be careful that you are protecting people's right to due process and not just taking their rights away at a willy-nilly. But I do think that we need to have some sort of system in place where when we know someone's dangerous, we can take their guns away in advance. So I am open. I think Jonah Goldberg at National Review wrote about this a while ago. I am open to a conservative form of red flag laws, and I think that could be somewhere we could meet in the middle.
The discussion, the debate continues, and I thanked Brad as we were wrapping up there. You know, I told him it was good to hear where both parties might be able to come to the table. And, you know, coming from Missouri, I told him I shot my first gun at 5 years old. And so I completely understand those who feel very passionately about this.